right, let's go.
Good evening. I am Dr. Denavo Robinson, Chair of the Board of Education, and I welcome you to our June 29th board meeting, and I call this meeting to order. If you would please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance and then a moment of silence. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. A moment of silence.
And justice for all.
Thank you very much. I would like to ask our Vice Chair, Sharon Warden, to read our ethics awareness statement, please.
Welcome to the June 29th, 2020, 7 p.m. regular meeting of the Elizabeth City Board of Education. It is my duty to remind members of the board that it is your responsibility to avoid all conflicts of interest and potential conflicts of interest in accordance with Chapter 138A of North Carolina General Statutes. As public servants, it is your duty to continually monitor, evaluate, and manage your personal, financial, and professional affairs in such a way as to ensure the absence of conflicts or potential conflicts. Does any member know of any interest or potential conflict of interest with respect to any matter coming before the board this evening?
No.
Let the record reflect that no conflicts exist.
Thank you very much, Ms. Warden. We appreciate that. Need a motion to approve our agenda for this evening?
I move
that we approve the agenda for this evening.
Thank you. Dr. Williams, a second?
Second.
Thank you. It's been properly moved and a second by Dr. Williams, motion by Sharon Warden. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Those
Aye.
opposed nay. The motion carries. Thank you very, very much. We'll next go to our superintendent's report. Dr. Catherine Edmonds, thank you.
Good evening, Dr. Robinson, Vice Chair, Warden, and board members. I would like to share with you an update of where the school district is and as it pertains to COVID-19. And after this presentation, I will also give a brief update on where we are with athletics. So as we think about this question, this is the question that has to stay at the forefront of our thinking in our minds with all the conversations that we're having around school reopening, COVID-19, and the pandemic. I often hear others say we want to go back to normal. But what we need to think about as we think about normal and we think about how are the children, normal for some children was poverty, inequities, inequalities in terms of resources in reference to broadband access. So I want us to think forward thinking as we think about getting back to normal, that we may need to redefine what is normal for our school district as we move forward. The Department of Public Instruction has now shared guidance with school districts around our possible reopening or reopening of schools. And so there's a guidebook that's on the website. There's a summary for the guidebook, but there's also a more detailed guidebook that's for parents and families, as well as school leaders, anyone that's connected to a school. It's also great for the community. And some of the pieces that are in the guidebook are the reopening plans and schedules, student health and safety, looking at employee health and safety and support, as well as social and emotional learning and mental health operations, looking at facilities, school nutrition, transportation, before and after school programming, athletics and extracurricular activities, communicating and combating misinformation, which is going to be huge as we move forward, student learning, instructional planning, and special population resources. So the guidebook is a very detailed guide in how we could possibly look at what are our structures in place and what strategies do we need to have in place, as well as process and procedures as we think about reopening. In the guidebook, you will see that there are 3 different plans that we need to address. And please ignore the summer jumpstart learning at the top. This is actually the 3 plans that are presented in the guidebook that we have to take into consideration. So Plan A would be the minimal social distancing, where all students are in school at the same time. So we're in this particular situation, we would have seen some decrease in the positive cases, and now we're able to be back in school, and we're headed in the positive direction in terms of the number of people being identified as having COVID-19. Plan B is moderate social distancing, which would require that the density, the limit of students and the density in the facilities. So we would be looking at 50% of our population in each of our schools. And Plan C would be that the cases of coronavirus have increased and there's very limited face-to-face contact, actually no face-to-face contact, and we would be in remote learning. So on Wednesday, July 1st, the governor is scheduled to have a press conference and will share at that time, for my understanding of what we've been told, is that at that time we will hear the plan that districts should prepare for in reference to reopening. Is it Plan A, B, or C? In preparation for Plan A, B, and C, Elizabeth City Pasquotank Public Schools, we have developed a reentry task force. And the reentry task force consists of 24 members. And the 24 members are from all of the areas that you see listed here. We meet once a week. We meet every Thursday. Typically, we would meet on Fridays, but now that we're in summer hours, we meet on Thursdays from 1 to 3. And we have all heads around the table thinking through what will it look like when we reopen schools, ensuring that we have process and procedures in place. We also had an opportunity to meet with our Safety and Security Council, which consists of our chief of police, the deputy chief, our sheriff, his deputy, emergency management, and our fire chief. And so we were able to meet with them, as well as the health department. Don't want to leave them out. So they all met with our reentry task force to help us think through what are those process and procedures we need to have in place. And also connected with our reentry task force are subcommittees. So because we can't get all of the work done between the time of 1 to 3, 1 day a week, we now have subcommittees that are led by one of the members of our reentry task force. And so we've taken the work and chunked it out and divided it up into these subcommittees. And when we come back on Thursdays, we report out of where we are, if there's decisions that need to be made or reaction to maybe some technology form that has been developed or whatever we need to do. And we have all of our folders in a Google Doc, so we can have our own Elizabeth City Pasquotank Public Schools document for reentry that would be based on the guidance that we receive from DPI. But we want to make sure that we don't confuse our families. And as you saw in the guidance document, communication is going to be key. And so we want to make sure that if at all possible, that we can limit the amount of miscommunication. And so we're trying to have as many people as possible have their voices at the table. We'll have focus groups that will be going on as well, so that we can hear from our community partners as well as our parents and our students. And we do have additional updates around calendar flexibility. You may recall that when we first shared out that we were updating our calendars, one of the stipulations was that we could not start any remote learning prior to August 24th. Now that we are given that flexibility, that we can have remote instruction prior to August 24th. For transportation, the original guidance was that we needed to have one child per seat. Well, now we're told we can have one child per seat. And if there are family members, they can all be on the same seat. So it's more about the density versus the number, versus where they're sitting on the actual bus. Driver's education, they have eliminated the driving portion of driver's education. So we can now reinstate our driver's education program. It will be through virtual learning only, and it's the classroom portion only. The driver's portion of this has been waived. As we're looking at entry into our buildings and the process that we're going to use, our reentry team has been working diligently to think about what that process could look like. And want to thank Amber Godfrey for putting together a template of a form that we can use, that we can send out to our staff prior to entering to the building, so that they can answer the questions about, have you been around anyone that's positive, so that attestation forms, we'll be able to have those filled out prior to them coming to the building. And we're also looking at how do we take temperatures. So for the summer months, it may be feasible for us to use the forehead scans where we scan one person at a time. But we now know that there are other options out there if we were to have students in the building, where you can actually walk through a scan, it will snap the picture and take the temperature at the same time, and it can do so many per minute. And we're also looking at child nutrition. Now we can look at the more innovative ways in school delivery for summer. Those programs that we're using in the summer months, we can now use those programs at the beginning of the school year. So basically, we can continue our school, child nutrition feeding program as we have. We did make some changes in some of the sites. That's on our social media page. So I ask families to please follow us on social media and on our website for those updates. So all school districts will receive a personal protection equipment start pack delivery that's coming to our web. Face shields, and the face shields are for the school staff and the nurses, gowns and surgical masks that will be for our school employees and the nurses. And so this is a starter pack, and these numbers look rather large, but when you think about a school district with over 5,300 students, this is very minimal. But we have been working with some of our CARES Act funding to start purchasing some of these pieces. And of course, our remote learning plan, which will address Plan C, is due to the State Board of Education by July 20th. So once we hear the announcement from the governor on July 1st, we will move forward with really focusing in on whichever plan, and it could be a hybrid of those plans, but our reentry task force team will really start working hard. We're already working hard, but to hone in on that one particular plan that we have to look at. And we did survey our district staff, students, parents, and community around our remote learning plan and their experience when we were in remote status. And we want to ensure that regardless of if we're in plan A, B, C, or a hybrid, that all the children are well in Elizabeth City Pasquotank Public Schools. And if you look at our list of who's involved with our reentry plan, we have all populations represented. We have our EC population, ESL, so all students will have a voice at the table. I did want to give a quick update on our athletic plans from the high schools. At the district level, we have received a plan from one of the high schools, and we've done a cursory review of that, and we're going to need some additional information. We need more detailed information. I heard the board loud and clear about your concerns, and we want to make sure that any plans that we have out there will ensure the safety and health and protection of our students and staff. And in light of the governor's announcement, we're also waiting to see if the North Carolina High School Athletic Association will send out additional guidance. So we're not at a place yet in that planning phase that we're ready to share a plan. We are still working. And that concludes the superintendent's updates. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Emmons. We appreciate the work that you and your team are doing. I now need an approval of our May 26th minutes and our June 12th minutes. I'll entertain a motion.
I'd like to move that we approve the minutes for May 26th and June 12th.
Thank you.
Second, Sheila Williams.
Thank you, Ms. Dr. Williams. It's been properly moved and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. Thank you. The motion carries. It's my understanding that we have no one for our public forum. So I will move into our agenda items. Financial, Business, and Technology Systems Committee Chair, Ms. Warden.
Yes, we have several items this evening, beginning with Ms. Rhonda James Davis, who will present the maintenance report or entertain any questions concerning the maintenance report, if anyone has any. If there are no questions about that, we want to move on. We have several action items that we will have to move on that Rachel Haynes, our Chief Financial Officer, will be presenting. So I'm going to call on Ms. Haynes at this time.
Chair Robinson, Vice Chair Warden, Superintendent Edmonds, and board members, good evening. Committee Chair Warden, as you said, we have several items on the agenda tonight. The first item is an action item. It is in your packet. It's FBT02, attachment FBT02. It's the payroll calendar for the 2020-2021 school year. It follows this year's payroll calendar very closely with early pay dates in November, December, January, and June. And at this time, we'd like to request approval on this item.
Okay, if there is no discussion, no questions about that item, I need a motion from the floor to accept the payroll calendar for 2020-21. And a second.
Ms. Warden, this is Pam Perez. I make a motion that we approve the payroll calendar as proposed.
Thank you, Ms. Perez. Do I have a second?
I second, Dr. Ollie.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the payroll calendar for 2020-21. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we're moving on, Ms. Haynes.
Okay, the next item is attachment FBT03. This is the interim budget resolution for 2020, 2021. And if there are no questions, we're requesting permission to adopt an interim budget at this time.
Are there any questions about this item? Okay, I need a motion to approve the the interim budget resolution, for 2021. And a second.
I move to approve the resolution for adoption of an interim budget, FBT 03.
Thank you, Dr. Williams. I need a second.
Second, this is Pam Pereza.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, moving on to the
next items are requests to renew contracts that we currently have. So we'd like to group item FBT 04, FBT 05, and attachment FBT 06 together for approval. The first item, which is attachment FBT 04, is our Edgenuity contract renewal. This is our credit recovery software. The second is our finance software. And the final one is the school board's trust auto inland marine policy. So if there are no questions, we're requesting permission to renew these three contracts.
Do we have any questions from the committee or any other members from the floor about any of these contract renewals? Any discussion? If not, I call for a motion to accept these contract renewals as they stand, and a second.
I'll second Dr. Jolly.
We need a motion, Mr. Jolly.
This is George Archuleta. I make a motion that we accept the contract renewals as was stated.
Okay, we've had a motion and a second. Any discussion about any of these contract renewals? Okay, we're going to take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that one passed. Haynes, we may move on.
All right, the next in our packet is attachment FBT 7. And this is the request granting the superintendent authorization to approve budget transfers within the same fund on June 30th, 2020. Any budget amendments she approves on this date would be reported to the board at the next regular meeting. We are requesting approval of this item.
Okay, can we discuss this item from anyone on the floor or the committee? If not, a motion to approve the operation of the year-end budget amendment 2019. And a second.
This is Sheila. I move to approve the FBT 7 authorization to approve year-end budget amendments 2019.
And I
Thank you, Dr. Williams.
I'll second it, George Archuleta.
Thank you, Mr. Archuleta. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. That's it for our action items. Now we're going to move on with some additional reports from Ms. Haynes. Ms. Haynes.
So the next group of attachments in your packet, FBT 08, 09, and 010, are copies of insurance policies for you. The first one is the cyber policy. The next one is our property insurance, and the last one is the workers' comp renewal. Attachment FBT 11 is the letter from the county manager that approved our 2020-2021 funding request. And Ms. Warden, we do have one more set of action items. We have a group of budget amendments that we need to get approved tonight. May we move forward with those amendments?
Okay, I'm sorry. I got those in my email and neglected to indicate those as action items. I'm sorry. Okay, we'll move on to those amendments. The insurance renewal policies were for information only, but the amendments that we were just recently given are for action tonight. So go ahead.
Thank you, Ms. Warden. Budget amendment, we have several budget amendments tonight. The first budget amendment is Amendment 107. It is to our state public fund, and it is an overall increase to the state public fund of $752,644. And the majority of these funds are made up of coronavirus relief funds that have come to us through different pots of money. Some of them Dr. Edmonds did speak about this evening. The first notable increase is to PRC 124, which is our student computer and devices through coronavirus relief, and that is in the amount of $130,793, and that's from the CARES Act. We also had an increase to the CARES Act School Nutrition Fund, but this is not a revenue replacement. This is just to help make the program whole. But our appropriation was $315,207. We received our allotment for coronavirus relief funds for personnel computers and devices in the amount of $17,444. And to the coronavirus relief fund home and community Wi-Fi devices for $42,699. And then we also received our state allocated emergency coronavirus relief funds in the amount of $210,075. And then as you can see in the explanation, there were some other transfers to align expenses to budgets. The second amendment on the list is Budget Amendment 206. This has an overall decrease of $2,000 to our current expense fund. And the change in the overall amount was to move a donation from senior scholars from Fund 2 to our Fund 8, our special revenue fund. And then as you can see in the detail, there was some budget cleanup to align budgets with expenses. Amendment number 306 is an amendment to our federal grants fund. This amount, the $1,719,283, is a result of our CARES Act 2020 application that we submitted. And this is part of the federal K-12 emergency relief funds. So some of the state funds we talked about was funding as a result of House Bill 1043 that came through on the state side. This is the part that came through on the federal side. And then Budget Amendment 402 is an increase in our capital outlay fund. The overall increase was $112,092, and that's to record the first bus that we have received. ECPPS is slated to receive 3 buses this year, and we have received the first bus. Other than that, we have transferred some money within projects. As you're aware, we chose not to do the PCHS phone system and to move that money to Chromebooks, which have been purchased. And then we transferred money from the Sheep Harney project in the amount of $5,417 to the River Road Painting Project for the purchase of paint, and $919 from the Sheep Harney project to the NHS Emergency Lighting Project to cover the difference in what we had budgeted and the amount of the contract for that project. And then the final amendment is 806, which is our local special revenue fund. And the majority of this is made up of drawdowns from Golden Leaf. We received a hotspot donation, the senior scholar donation previously mentioned, and then some other grant funds. Are there any questions on the amendments presented?
I have a question about the paint project at River Road. Where are we as far as when that will begin? Is that already?
We have completed the paint project at River Road.
It has been completed. Okay,
Yes,
thank you. All right. Any other questions or comments about the amendment items that were presented?
Vice Chair
Okay,
Warden.
I need a motion to.
Vice Chair
Yes,
Warden,
sir.
sorry to interrupt. On this motion, we're going to need to have a roll call. It's been brought to my attention that we need to have roll call by board members.
Okay, that's fine.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, so I need a motion to accept amendments 107, 206, 306, 402, and 806. And a second. So a motion and a second from the floor, please, to accept those amendments.
Ms. Warden, this is Pam Pereza. I make a motion that we accept those amendments that were just presented by Ms. Haynes.
Thank you, Ms. Pereza, and a second.
Ms. Warren, this is George Archuleta, and I'll second it.
Great. We have a motion and a second, so we are going to take a vote based on a roll call. Tammy, can you do that, please?
Yes.
She online with us?
Yes. Sharon Warden,
Aye.
George Archuleta,
Aye.
Virginia Houston,
Aye.
Mr. Jolly,
Aye.
Pam Pereza,
Aye.
Dr. Sheila Williams.
Aye.
Thank you.
Dr. Robinson, that concludes the financial report for tonight's meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vice Chair Warden. We appreciate you. Our next committee is a policy code. Mr. Jolly, we have one item.
We have one item tonight under the policy committee. This is PC 01, Policy Code 2237, Appointment to the COA Board of Trustee Action. Dr. Robinson, first. We've left them nominated.
Last month, we brought forth a new policy, and we waited the 30 days period to identify an appointments procedure for the COA Board of Trustees. I'll entertain a motion to that effect.
I'd like to make a motion that we put it in effect.
Fantastic. We have a motion. We now have a second.
I will second that.
Thank you, Vice Chair Warden. We have motion and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Sawyer, would you do our roll call, please?
Ms. Sharon Warden,
Aye.
Mr. Archuleta,
Aye.
Ms. Virginia Houston,
Aye.
Mr. Walter B. Jolly,
Aye.
Pam Pereza,
Aye.
Dr. Sheila Williams.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jolly. We go on to our next committee. Chair is Virginia Houston, and our Global Citizens and Healthy Students. Ms. Houston?
All right, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, we have 4 items under this topic, and I'd like to call on Ms. Tammy Reinhardt, Director of Child Nutrition, to go through these. You have the information in your packets.
Hello all, how are you doing tonight?
We're good, thank
You
you.
were doing well.
Thank you. The first one I had wanted to ask permission was the CEP, the Community Eligibility Provision. And this one I was proposing to add all schools, all K-8 elementary, all elementaries and middle schools to be able to participate in the community eligibility provision, which would enable all meals, breakfast and lunch, to be provided at no cost to any child.
Does anyone have any questions for Ms. Reinhardt with regard to this proposal? All right. Dr. Robinson, do you want to take these one by one or go through all four?
Let's go through all four and we'll vote for them all at the same time.
All right. Okay. All right, Ms. Reinhardt, the next one is the grocery bid.
Yes, we had only Cisco out of Hampton Roads bid on our groceries. So of course they received the bid. The second one would be the Greenville would be produce. The produce bid was bid upon by Cisco Hampton Roads. I'm sorry, I said Raleigh earlier. It's Hampton Roads. And Greenville Produce also bid, but the price was higher. So Cisco Hampton Roads received that bid. Also the supplies, paper goods, that was bid on by Riverside Supply Company and Cisco Hampton Roads. And Cisco Hampton Roads again won that bid.
Are there any questions for Ms. Reinhardt? Any clarification? Anything? Then Dr. Robinson, may I offer a motion that we accept items GCHS-01, GCHS-02, GCHS-03, and GCHS-04. I put that in the form of a motion, so I need a second.
I'll second.
Okay, Dr. Robinson, is there any discussion?
Hearing no discussion, Ms. Sawyer, would you give us a roll call, please, for those four items?
Yes, Ms. Sharon Warden,
Aye.
Mr. George Archuleta,
Aye.
Ms. Virginia Houston,
Aye.
Mr. Walter Jolly,
Aye.
Ms. Pam Pereza,
Aye.
Dr. Sheila Williams.
Aye.
Thank you.
Fantastic. The motion's carry. Thank you very much, Ms. Houston. Committee Chair Pam Pereza to talk about our excellent educators.
Good evening. The items that we received today were for closed session, correct?
And we could just ratify those decisions made in open session in our closed session. We could just ratify our decisions.
Okay. I would like to make a motion that we approve the items that were discussed in closed session earlier this evening. Is that all I need to include in the motion, or I need to be more specific?
I think that's sufficient.
Miss Pam, this is George. I'll second it.
Okay, great. Tammy, can we have a roll call?
Yes, Ms. Sharon Warden,
Aye.
Mr. George Archuleta,
Aye.
Ms. Virginia Houston,
Aye.
Mr. Walter Jolly,
Aye.
Pam Pereza,
Aye.
Dr. Sheila Williams.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Perez. We appreciate you. We're now at the portion of our agenda for board member reports. Is there anyone would like to share?
I would love to say this about our graduations. It was a tremendous night at Northeastern High School. Last night was a great night out at Pasquotank. But most of all, the great fun, the laughter that the families had. It was just amazing and it was great.
Fantastic.
Dr. Robinson, if I may, I want to add on to that. I agree with Mr. Jolly, but I think that's what makes it great. Our two high schools are different. The way they approached it was different, but it was a success however you look at it. And I want to say with Mr. Jolly, it was great to see the enjoyment. At Northeasterners, they took that final ride and they got to see things, but it was also an enjoyment to see how the students responded at their graduation there at Pasquotank. And I think that's what makes things great, that yes, we have two schools, but they're different and that's okay. So I think that's great.
And I'll
Thank you, Mr. Perez.
And I'll ditto that. Again, it was really, really rewarding. And your graduation at dusk is something outside that I haven't done before. So it really was a pleasant experience. And to see the enthusiasm or hear the enthusiasm from the parents and the students was really a pleasure.
And the fireworks show was terrific.
Yes, it was.
Anyone else?
I would just like to add that in addition to that, if we have principals listening, we do want to commend you on everything that you have done, particularly at these high schools, to make this such a great experience for these students in light of everything. It took a lot of work and coordination, and want you to know that that has not gone unnoticed for all of the time and support and energy you've put in to making this graduation a great one for students.
Yeah.
And I think those kudos need to go to all the principals who had, because I don't think we've had a chance to say that yet, really, for all they did to bring this very unique school year to final closure. They should all be commended, as well as all staffs, parents, and students.
And Dr. Robinson, if I may add, I was privileged enough, at least there in the beginning, to be on the one that chose the Teacher of the Year. And I think that was great. It was well deserved. But I want to say, I really think every teacher deserves some sort of recognition. And I want to say that's great. I think everyone deserves Teacher of the Year. That is just, how I feel.
Yeah, we agree with you, Mr. Archuleta. Anyone else? Well, piggybacking on Teacher of the Year, I appreciate those that were nominated for Principal of the Year. We really appreciate that, as well as our Senior Scholars Program. I thought that was an excellent way for us to acknowledge students and for the students to acknowledge their teachers. Any other things from board members?
Just like to thank all the work that the teachers have put in. It's been a stressful time for them, but they have met that. They know what they're here for, and they're pushing forward, and we're looking for a great year.
Fantastic. I agree. We really want to thank the teachers as you brought this year to a close. Please stay safe during the time that we're out. And to our students, same to you. Understand that we're still in a pandemic. Stay safe, protect yourself and others. But we really appreciate who you are and what you do. Anything else from the board? Any other items to bring forward? Then if there is no other business to bring forth for this evening, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
It's been properly moved and second. Ms. Sawyer, you won't have any problems here.
Ms. Sharon Warden,
Yay. No.
Mr. Archuleta,
I agree with Sharon.
Let's keep this party going.
Ms. Houston,
I'm going to say aye.
Mr. Jolly,
Ah,
Ms. Pereza, and Dr.
Checked out.
Dr. Williams. Dr. Williams,
Present.
thank you.
And I for me, you've
I
frozen up on me. Tammy, Pam Pereza froze up on me.
Good. You stop for a minute.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, board members. Thank you for our closed session meeting. And we appreciate who you are and the work that you do for our district. So we just wanted to say thank you to all of you. And to that, we will adjourn. Have a safe and restful evening.